Hi there. So I am going to teach you how to draw the Photoshop ducky in this next tutorial. It's where I start and have started for over a decade, possibly before you guys were born. I've been teaching people to use the Photoshop ducky. Now, the ducky doesn't exist anymore in Photoshop. It used to be part of an image set that people had access to when you bought Photoshop. And it was because they used it as a demonstration tool. So because it has, a set of parameters that allow me to teach you a lot of different things easily, I have continued to use it. So if you do a search for, and I would encourage you to, draw your own ducky. If you do a search for Photoshop duck, you're going to come up with this guy. And I actually, if I do any size, I'm probably going to come up with him as well. Although he used to be all over the internet, and now he is becoming less available. So I'm just going to drag him to my desktop. You could also hit on a Mac the control and go down to save image as, and I could put him on my desktop. But I just do a drag onto my desktop. However you would save an image is the way I would encourage you to go about it. Now we're going to go into Illustrator. Now we could do a couple of things. I could actually take this duck, I have this launcher, and I could just launch Illustrator with that duck and it would give me a shape. Or I could come into File, down to New Document, create my document that I want to set up. I'm just going to use Letter, and go File, down to Place, and place my duck, and he's on my desktop, and there he is, and so I'll place him. So we have one duck, and I'm going to encourage you to have two, because we're going to draw over one, and then we're going to use one to grab color from. And so this is my first level. I'm going to double click this and call this duck, so that I know what's there, and then I'm going to lock it. I'm locking it because I don't want to be able to touch anything there when I'm drawing. And I'm going to show you how to build things up with layers. If you are new to Illustrator, and some of you may have been using Illustrator for a while, but you may have been using it wrong. And some of you may have been using it for a while and using it right. So I'm going to approach this in my method of drawing. There are a million ways to do this, and I will say that in your classroom, down here I have YouTube video resources, and I have them broken down into using pen tool, mesh gradient, how to add grain or texture to your drawing, and then an Illustrator overview. I just put in week 1 a required watch for Thursday, March 26th. So that's what you are going to be required to do for class time tomorrow, is watch a video. It's about, I think, 20 minutes long, and then this video will be right below it. You're going to be required to watch that as well. It's up to you. If you choose not to draw the ducky, I will tell you that this is a great skill building, and you will have watched me. You will have watched me. Oops, let me just accept that. You will have watched me draw this, and so in doing it yourself, you will probably learn a great deal. All right, so starting out, I always draw in a really specific way that like is a little bit surprising for a lot of people. I'm just gonna close everything out except for my pen tool. And I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to do a tear off, so all of my tools are visible up here, and these little things at the end are called tear offs, and it allows you to see all of those tools. So I'm going to start out by calling this body, because we're going to do his body. We're going to do him in pieces. We're going to build those pieces, and then we're going to do some color and shading to those pieces. So the way that I encourage you to learn how to draw is the idea of top of the hill, bottom of the hill. The reason why I do this is because I don't want you to focus on having to draw the curves when you first start to draw. I want you to figure out where to put the points. So this is going to be my bottom of the hill, and this is actually an indentation, so we're going to still consider it a hill. We're just going to consider it an inverted hill, so I'm going to put something at the top of the hill, and then this will be at the bottom of the hill, and then this is obviously a very clear top of the hill, and this will be my bottom of the hill. And then I'm going to come all the way over here for my next top of the hill, and we can make that sweep pretty easily. And then this is going to be my bottom of the hill, top of the hill, bottom of the hill, top of the hill, bottom of the hill. And then you'll notice that I'm going to close my shape. Notice as I come toward that, I get a little circle right next to my pen tool at the bottom, and that's telling me that I'm closing the shape. Whenever you draw in Illustrator, you want to make sure that you connect the first dot and the last dot so you have a full shape. It will impact how Illustrator does things like, for example, fills or does mesh gradient. Now that we've done that, and I know this doesn't look at all like a ducky, I'm going to come over here to, remember I call this the curve converter tool. Can't remember what they're calling it now because I'm not getting the little anchor point tool. And I'm going to start doing my curves, and I'm just going to pull on either side, and you can see that those have some flexibility, but I'm going to give myself that depression. I'm going to ignore the next point, and then I'm going to go to the next one. And so that's going to be the thing that I do. I'm going to go to every other point. I'm going to ignore this point, and then I'm going to go to this point. I'm going to zoom out because I'm going to need that. I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to pull my point. Now, in some instances, you may only be able to do half of the curve. You can see I did half of that curve well. And to be honest, we could leave this alone, but I'm going to pull that other half because I can impact these independently and finish covering the rest of my duck butt. All right, so we manipulated that point. We're going to ignore this point. This is going to be the top of our hill. We're going to click and drag, and then we're going to ignore this point, and then we're going to go to the next one, top of the hill. Now, I can tell you that I didn't do a very good job there. Now, one of the things that I usually do is I do go ahead and smooth things out between after I've gotten through, and that typically, like, one of the things that I'll do is I will grab this and flip it, and I can see that I have a little bit of a whatchamacallit happening there, and so I'm going to smooth that out by manipulating that point. But when I first start manipulating, it's just every other point, and you can see that that is now all fixed. So we turned this black. We have an outline of white. We want to get rid of that outline and click on that fill, and now fill our shape, and that's one of the reasons why this is over here. We're going to click on our eyedropper and grab that yellow. Now, once we're done with that, we're going to lock that, and we're going to move on to the head of our duck. One of the reasons why we're drawing on layers is also I can turn that off so I don't see it. Head is super easy because it's a lot of big fluffy hills. So bottom of the hill, top of the hill, bottom of the hill, top of the hill, bottom of the hill, top of the hill. I'm going to put the bottom of the hill over here. Top of and we'll close that shape. You notice as I got close to that, I got that little circle and I closed my shape. Now I'm going to go to my curve converter or my anchor point tool, and I'm just going to start, and I'm going to pull. Notice that there's a lot of flexibility here, and if you hold down shift, it's actually going to really make those even. And you can see that that's actually a little bit on a slant to make that actually exactly like him. So I've got the top half of my curve done. I'm going to let that go, and then I'm going to manipulate just the bottom tool. And then over here I'm going to actually ignore these two, and then I'm going to come over here and do his cheek. And that is all there is to the head. I'm actually going to make this a little bit more have a point in. Guess I'm going to leave it alone. All right, so I'm going to label that head, and then I'm going to lock it and turn it off. And then I'm going to come in and do the bill. Now we have two bills. We're going to do the underbill and the overbill. So we are going to do the underbill first, and this is bottom of the hill, top of the hill, bottom of the hill, top of the hill, bottom of the hill, top of the hill, and we'll close. This is all going to be underneath, so it's not a big deal. And so I'm going to start out with our biggest curve, and that's right here. And you can see that as I rotate it, I can get that very much skewed kind of relationship. And this is another curve, so we're going to give it a little bit more curve there. And that's going to be our bottom bill. It's not a big deal because our top bill is actually going to hide it. So I'm going to pick this kind of darker color with my eyedropper. I'm going to hide it and lock it, and then add another, and that's going to be bottom. Oops. And this is going to be top. I can tell you that this is probably going to be the demo without any kind of blips in it, because I've drawn this duck a million times. Other demos, what you're going to see is a lot of trial and error, which is what drawing in Illustrator is all about, figuring out what works and what gives you the image that you want. All right, so we're going to do bottom of the hill, top of the hill, 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 bottom, and close. Probably not all of them are going to be bottoms. This one's going to be a little bit different in that we'll end up manipulating more than just every other point. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to manipulate that point, and it kind of has like this little indent, and so we'll be manipulating those 2 points together. To be honest, I'm going to manipulate every point as I go around, just because this has got very subtle little curves that I want to kind of mimic. And you can see that I'm just kind of taking the point off of each one of them. So you can see that even though I gave myself this rule that every other point, now that I'm starting to get comfortable, I am, you know, manipulating each point. I'm going to actually ignore that point. Give myself a little bit of an indent there, and then I'm going to give that curve there. And we're going to call it a day for the top of my bill. And I'm going to come over here and select the lighter color. I'm going to turn that off and lock it, and then I'm going to go on to his eyes. How many? We're at 14 minutes. Normally I break this up into like two small demos, but I'm going to just go for it since you guys can shut it off if you need to and take a break. But we're going to go to the ellipse tool to make his eyes, because there's no point. This is like an egg shape, and so there's no point in drawing that if we don't have to. I'm going to stretch it a little bit. I'm going to stretch it down this way a little bit, Now, one of the things that happens with his eye, I'm going to move it off to the side, is it flattens out down here. So we're going to come over here to, remember my curve converter, the anchor point tool, and I'm just going to grab that point and I'm going to flatten it out so that it's very much like that eye. And then I'm going to go to my swatches and I'm going to pick a white. Because if I picked something over here, I could end up with like a, you can see that those pixels look a little bit dirty. And this will give me a cleaner white. And then the same thing, I'm going to do a black shape. And I'm going to stretch it a little bit wider. And then I can flatten it out a little bit down here. And then I'm going to grab this and drag it back over. We're not looking for absolute realism here. We're just looking to make a reasonable looking ducky. Now, probably one of the things that I would do, because I grew up on a farm, animals that have lots of white showing usually are scared animals. So I'm going to open that up so that we see less white, and you can see that we need to maybe make this a little bit taller. And actually, I think I'm going to widen it up here. Now, one of the last things I'm going to do before moving on to the other eye is he has two highlights. And I'm not going to worry that they're exactly where they were placed. I'm just going to place them. Then there's one, and then there's usually another little tiny white one. And I'm going to move that maybe a little bit closer. Let's actually move the black and white off. I'm too much of a perfectionist sometimes. And see where those were. I've got them a lot bigger than they need to be. I've drawn this so much that like the position being off was driving me nuts. Okay, so that looks better. All right. So you can see that this does not look like an egg, but we're going to use the same ellipse tool. To do this, we're just going to pull what looks like the right size and stretch it a little bit so that it's the full size. And I'm actually, to draw this, I'm going to turn this to red and do an outline so I can see where his eye is. And one of the easy ways, all right, so sorry about that. Occasionally I'm going to have to stop because I do have calls that come in that I need to answer, and that was just the department chair. And so our schedules are a little bit off, and if I don't catch them when they call, then it becomes like a weird phone tag. All right, so now that we have the circle and I can see what's underneath the eye, I can actually go in with the direct select. And remember, I'm going to be able to select that point, and I'm going to move those around, and you can see that literally in just 2 movements, I was able to get that oddly shaped eye in place. And now I can get rid of the fill and make the fill white. And I'm going to do exactly what I did before, which is drag that to the side. I'm going to give myself that shape. And this time, instead of like doing the line, I'm just going to drag those points into place. Since you saw what was happening, I feel more comfortable doing it this way now. And then I'm going to do black. And then I'm going to click in the center of that and drag that over. Now you can see that this really needs some tweaking. So I'm going to pull this handlebar a little bit wider. I'm going to click on this side, pull this handlebar a little bit wider. And then I'm going to probably pull this over a little bit. And then do that. All right, So I'm going to leave it there, and then I am going to go in with white, and I'm just going to do my two little highlights before I drag those two things back. I'm going to do a drag select on those two shapes and move them over. And so now we can turn everybody on, and you can see that we kind of have the sense of a ducky. I'm actually going to unlock his head and make his head just a little bit different color, so that there is some differences. And so because the next demo that you guys are going to do, I'm going to unlock all of these. I'm going to show you how to use a mesh gradient. Oops, I got to be in that tool. I'm going to do the mesh gradient. I'm going to drag this guy over here so that we can see what he looked like before. And I'm going to end this demo now. The next demo will be on mesh gradient. In between you watching this video and the next video, what I would like you to do is try to draw this duck. Thanks.